Okay, so moving on to the next segment of today's show, we have a really fun and creative segment that we're going to be doing. It's called Stock Up, Stock Down. And basically the exercise we're going to be doing is Andrew and I are going to be throwing teams off each other that we're either going to be buying stock in or selling stock in. And then by the time the playoffs roll around, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how our predictions turned out. But I just wanted to explain how exactly this segment works and how I would describe it. Teams we're going to be buying stock in are going to be teams that, relative to expectations, we think that their respective fan bases will be feeling pretty good. A perfect example would be the Miami Dolphins. If they make the playoffs, I don't think anyone's going to expect them to win the Super Bowl, but at the same time, if they win 2 playoff games relative to their expectations, I think their fans will be feeling pretty good and feeling pretty optimistic about the job Brian Flores and the rest of the team has done. So that would be a team that if you think Miami is going to be winning 2 playoff games, if they even make the playoffs, that would be a team you would be buying stock in. A team that right now people think could win the Super Bowl that you think is going to be out in the first round of the playoffs, that would be a team you would be selling stock in. So it's pretty simple. So without further ado, Andrew, you ready to go?
Yeah, let's do this, man.
All right, I'll hit the music and let's start it off. All right, Andrew. The first team I'm going to be throwing to you is the Indianapolis Colts. I'm buying stock in the Colts, man. I absolutely love the coaching staff that Frank Reich has and his ability to call plays in clutch moments. I think that is a top 5 defense that could get in Patrick Mahomes' face. They could slow down offenses. We saw them do it against Aaron Rodgers. They were down 14-3 against the Packers going into the second half. And Jonathan Taylor and those big boys up front, Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, Anthony Costanza, they got the job done for the Colts. They used Hines and Jonathan Taylor very creatively. And let's not forget, they have a quarterback that isn't afraid of Patrick Mahomes. He's beaten the Chiefs in big primetime moments. Philip Rivers, I'll admit, going into the season, I thought he was washed. But Frank Reich has done a phenomenal job using him the best and most efficient ways as possible. I'm buying stock in the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, though. I think the Colts are going to have a really good playoff run and deeper than people think because they have a veteran quarterback and a really solid defense. And I agree on that take. The team that I got stock building up on is the Buffalo Bills. They have recently just continued to roll over their teams, their opponents in the last couple of weeks. And they've just been Josh Allen's been lighting it up on the field and developing a really great connection with Cole Beasley and their number 1 receiver, Stephon Diggs. Yeah, been doing really good. And their defense is on the rise. So I think if their defense can play a little more, they're gonna make it even deeper run and win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that we right now are seeing a team like the Buffalo Bills really be in that race. And if you guys have been listening to this show from the beginning, it's funny because I say it all the time. I did not expect Josh Allen to be this good this quickly. The rise he has made from his first year to his second year has been absolutely phenomenal, and it's been very fun to watch, especially if you're a fan of the Buffalo Bills. And Andrew, you mentioned it. Last year, one of the reasons why this Buffalo Bills team was so good and so consistent was because of their defense and the way they were able to get the job done and make the timely play. But this year, especially in the beginning of the season, they haven't necessarily been that good. The offense has really been the reason why they've been winning most of these games. So I'll be honest with you, I didn't have the Bills as a team I'm buying or selling stock in. That was a team I had off the board. I think right now they are the trendy pick that a lot of people are going with, and that's why I left them off the board. I wouldn't be shocked if they make a run and make the AFC Championship game, but at the same time, I'm not necessarily sure if that's a team I'm 100% buying stock in. Would you say that right now they're the biggest threat to the Chiefs in the AFC?
The Bills, I would say they are because, I think they have the offensive firepower to really compete with Kansas City, and their defense is a little underrated. They have Tre'Davious White and a bunch of good pieces, Ed Oliver on the defensive side, Jerry Hughes, and they could really rush a quarterback. So I think they are the biggest threat, especially with Pittsburgh in a big slump right now, and they're not looking good.
Yeah, dude. It's very interesting because Josh Allen has been super impressive, and Brian Dable, the way he's been calling plays, that offense is humming, and it's fun to watch. I would be very fascinated to see them play Kansas City, man. Right now, it's looking like if Buffalo does win their next 2 games, they're going to be the number 2 seed. Here's my question for you, dude. Buffalo this week plays New England on the road. That should be a game they win. I just think by offensive firepower, they should be able to get the job done. But at the same time, they end their season week 17 at home against the Dolphins. And the Dolphins could be fighting for their playoff lives. My question for you is, dude, if you're Buffalo, do you prioritize the 2 seed opposed to the 3 seed that much that you're going to be going all out in week 17? Or would you be, all right, I'm trying to maybe rest my starters and maybe, develop a little bit of a fresher start to the playoffs?
Yeah, well, I think when you look at it for the Bills, I mean, the 5th seed is the Browns and the 6th seed is the Colts. So, and I think they're both really good teams. So, honestly, I think that it doesn't even matter for Buffalo because if they rest their guys for a little bit and take a loss or 2, they'll end up in the 3rd seed and still versus a really good opponent. And I think both of the good teams, both of the teams are so good that it doesn't even matter, honestly. So
yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see, man. I'll admit, watching Buffalo the last 2 weeks against Denver and against Pittsburgh was very fun to watch. I mean, in the second half of the Steeler game, I was really impressed with Josh Allen because early in that game, the Steelers' defense was giving him the Sam Darnold's I'm seeing ghost vibes. Like, they were in his face. He wasn't really able to make plays. He threw a pick that was, not ideal. But as soon as that game changed on that pick 6 late in the first half, in the second half, Josh Allen was really able to just carve up the Steelers' defense, and it was really fun to watch. And then going into Denver against a coach in Vic Fangio that historically is one of the best defensive minds in the NFL, that was super impressive. So Buffalo is definitely going to be a team to watch going forward. I will give you a team I'm selling stock in, dude. Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. When I watch these guys play, I'm a little confused, like, what do they do well? I still don't really know what exactly their identity is, and it's funny, dude, because I remember having this conversation with you on this podcast before the season started. I'm really high in the Bucs. I think they're going to win the NFC South. But as time has gone on, I've realized their defense is super inconsistent. It will be good at some times. At other times, it will look like crap. They were down 17-0 to the Falcons. If Dan Bailey could make a field goal 2 weeks ago, they could have easily lost to the Vikings. And they're lucky that they have a quarterback in Tom Brady that is good enough to get over those flaws. I'm just not 100% sure if he could lead them and be the reason why they win a playoff game.
No, I agree with you, Zach. I think that the Buccaneers are also a team that's really, they're a wild card. We don't know what they're going to be every week. Tom Brady could be really good, or the offensive line could be all of a sudden really bad and just let up a lot of sacks, and Brady has a few really bad picks. So it really depends on how, as you said, their defense, which has elite players at some aspects, in White, and you have Ndamukong on the line, and so it really is a team that I think is going to have a good line on paper, but I think that they're going to not be able to live up to that talent, and I'm not sure. I think they might have a quick playoff exit.
Yeah, so give me a team you're selling stock in.
Yeah, so one of the other teams I'm selling stock on are. Give me 1 second. I am definitely I'm selling stock on the Saints because, last week really showed a lot about Drew Brees. Look, it was a close game, but I just felt like Drew Brees was having they weren't able to overcome a good team versus an opponent that like the Chiefs, and I think that they're going to verse thirsty teams in the playoffs that are just like the Chiefs and playing up to that level. And I see the Saints being overhyped as being Super Bowl champs. I don't see them being better than Green Bay or even Seattle. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, dude, I got to be honest. I think their defense is really good. And I think the last couple weeks, I've been really impressed with what they've been able to do. I understand they gave up 30 points to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, but, that's not saying that much. They could do that against really anyone they want. They were able to get in his face. But I agree, man. I remember watching that game against the Chiefs on Sunday. And, dude, not going to lie, midway through the second quarter, Drew Brees had more picks than yards. I was like, what are we doing here? And when you look at Michael Thomas. He's not healthy. He hasn't really been the same guy all season. Kamara is good, but their offensive line was not good at all against Kansas City on Sunday. They've had a little bit of trouble running the ball. And I like Taysom Hill, but we all knew that Sean Payton must have said in practice, okay, Drew Brees, to me, Drew Brees did not look healthy in that game on Sunday against the Chiefs.
No.
And Sean Payton must have said in practice, all right, this is the guy that I want at quarterback to start. Not Taysom Hill. I want Drew Brees at quarterback when he looked like crap and not healthy. That's a concern for the Saints. I agree with you 100%. That was actually another team that I was going to be selling stock in. And they do close their season with a somewhat easy schedule. They actually play on Christmas Day tomorrow against the Minnesota Vikings. It's going to be a new look in 2020 watching the NFL on Christmas along with the NBA.
Yeah, fun time.
So, yeah, definitely. So, it's going to be very interesting to see how the rest of that goes. But I'll give you a team that I am buying stock in. And this is going to surprise you, Andrew, because this is a team that I remember during the preseason we spoke a lot, and I was like, all right, I can't really see this team doing well. But if Lamar Jackson could come out against the Cleveland Browns in that kind of environment and lead his team to a victory in a game that they needed to have, I was really impressed.
Yeah.
And they play on Sunday against the New York Giants. That's a good defense. I think that will be a good test. But Lamar Jackson wins games. I don't think we could deny that. He is a good quarterback. I don't know if he's a great quarterback, but he's a good quarterback. The Ravens will be a very well-coached team in the playoffs. I'm buying stock in the Ravens. Their schedule is pretty easy going forward. They have the Giants and the Bengals to end the season. I think if they're legit, they'll win those two games. Their defense, we know, has the ability to be good at times with Campbell and with Ngakoue and with Peters and with Humphrey. I'm buying stock in the Ravens.
Yeah, I agree with you, Zach. I think that the Ravens are going to be, they've been lighting it up recently, Lamar Jackson has, and that defense can be elite at any game. They can really take over a game. They have huge names, like you just said, Calais Campbell and Ngakoue, and a really good secondary. And they could rush the quarterback and have a versatile game plan. And, also, if Lamar Jackson can run the ball and the offensive line can get a big enough push, then they could really win any game by controlling the tempo and the clock. And, that big game, they could also be explosive. And, it surprised me because that game against the Browns, it looked like they were actually going to be able to compete against a team like the Chiefs. They can be in the shootout. So, I'm also buying stock in them as well.
Yeah, it's funny because I think also when you look at the Ravens, I don't know if you buy any stock in this point, but you remember the Ravens with Joe Flacco, and when they won that Super Bowl, every game was on the road. Every game they were underdogs, basically. And I feel like they used that as motivation, and that's when Coach Harbaugh is at his best. Last year in the regular season at the beginning, everyone was downing Lamar Jackson as a passer, and all of a sudden he wins the MVP of the league. But the Ravens go 14-2 and get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs against the Titans when everyone had their very high expectations for them. But then at the same time, early this season, when they played the Chiefs, they didn't even look like they were on the same playing field. When they played the Browns, they've looked good, but they've been other games this season where they've struggled. They lost against the Titans at home. They barely beat the Colts. And I think it's good that their offense is peaking at this time. Give me, Andrew, a team that you are buying or selling stock in.
A team that I'm actually buying stock in is a very interesting team because they're not that very good still, but is the Washington football team. I think that they are, they have a defense that's been playing really well these last couple of games. And, that front four that they have is pretty elite. Montez Sweat and Chase Young and they have their defensive tackle. They have a really good front four that can pressure the quarterback and take over a game. I think the big thing is if they get Alex Smith back, because ever since he joined and came back onto the field,
there's no denying he wins football games.
He wins football games, and there's something in his DNA that just helps him.
Dude, I'm telling you this, man. I've never played football. I've never been in an NFL locker room, but I gotta say, man, like, if you're a young player on that Washington football team and you see a guy like Alex Smith, everything that he's gone through, and he's the leader of your team, and he's saying, bro, like, I'm literally willing to put my leg on the line to win football games for you. That's got to be a very inspiring sight. And Ron Rivera is a coach recovering from cancer, obviously. it's just such an interesting story. And obviously, if Alex is banged up, that sucks. I hope he'll be ready to go. But I agree, man. That was a team, Washington, that I left off the board because I think a lot of people are actually on the same page as you are. But at the same time, dude, right now, if you ask me, Tampa Bay at Washington, I'm taking the football team in that playoff game.
Yeah, same here. I definitely agree, and I think that they have a pretty good upcoming couple of games to see where they're at, and it'll be interesting. I think they're gonna win the NFC East, and I think they're gonna probably win a few games maybe.
All right, I'll give you another team that I will be buying stock in. I'll give you another team in the NFC, Andrew, that I'm buying stock in. It's the Seattle Seahawks. I think their defense over the last couple weeks has been significantly improved. Jamal Adams, our guy, coming back, playing really well. The addition of Carlos Dunlap has been really good. And Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson in the playoffs, man. There is a scary sight whenever you face them. And they obviously have a huge game against the Los Angeles Rams coming up on Sunday. It's probably going to be for the division. But at the same time, we just saw the Rams lose to the Jets. How could we be confident in the Rams going on the road to Seattle and Jared Goff beating Russell Wilson in the big game? I like the ability Seattle's defense has shown to put pressure on the quarterback, and that's how you beat Jared Goff. That's how you blow up Sean McVay and his genius offensive systems. I think the NFC West is the best division in football. Seattle's a tough, experienced football team. I'm buying stock in the Seahawks.
Yeah, I am too, Zach. I agree. Like, they have like an MVP, a future past MVP quarterback, and this guy's gonna be a Hall of Famer one day. And he's been elite with his DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and they have a very good running game. And I agree. I think they're gonna possibly be in the Super Bowl. I think they're definitely gonna be the NFC East Championship round. This big game right now against the Rams. If they can win this, then I think they definitely should be favorites, but this is going to be a huge game. This might determine their fate because if they're a wild card team, they don't play well on the road. So
Well, it's interesting, dude, because here's the thing: in the regular season they play well on the road in the East Coast. They've won. I don't know if you've heard the stat. They've won like 10 straight 1:00 games on the road. It's crazy. They went into Washington and won last week. They beat Miami on the East Coast earlier this season. So that is possible. But at the same time, I'll give you an argument here. Every successful playoff win Pete Carroll has had as the head coach of the Seahawks has been in Seattle. So I'm curious to see if they have the ability to go on the road to a place like Lambeau Field or a place like New Orleans and win a playoff game. I do think they can because their offense is super dynamic. I also think when you look at the Packers, right now, if you ask most people who is the favorite in the NFC, they would probably be the consensus answer. Because when you look at the fact that they would have the bye week as the number 1 seed, it's very hard to win at Lambeau Field in -3-degree weather. But at the same time, I'll say this. I think they're a soft team. They're not physical. You punch them in the mouth and limit Devontae Adams and limit Aaron Rodgers, they're beatable. And I do think the way Seattle's defense is playing, they can maybe do just enough to limit Green Bay's offense. I'm buying stock in Seattle. I'm curious for your thoughts on Green Bay as well.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm selling stock on Green Bay because I think that they're a very overrated team. They have, like you said, like you punch them in the mouth and you have a good run game and control the clock. They're easily beatable, I think. I think that their defense can turn it on some games, but at the same time, they could also be really flat. So I think they're winnable, and if you put pressure on Aaron Rodgers, and there's a few fronts in the playoffs that could easily, have a very good edge rush game and get to the quarterback really fast, then they're going to be in trouble. So I'm selling stock on the Green Bay Packers, and I think they might be an early exit, probably earlier than we expect.
Yeah, dude. All right, so it looks like that's going to be it for the segment. Just again to recap, I'm buying stock in Seattle, I'm buying stock in Baltimore, and I am selling stock in Tampa Bay, and I am also buying stock in the Colts. That was the other one I was missing. A couple teams that I left off the board. Cleveland, I think they could win a playoff game. I don't necessarily know how much they could do after that, but Kevin Stefanski's done a phenomenal job. Baker Mayfield looks really good. I'm leaving Miami off the board because I think odds are, do they lose to Buffalo? Probably, but they've had a really successful season. I'm leaving Green Bay off the board just because it's hard to win at Lambeau, and I don't necessarily know how many other teams could win at Lambeau. And the Rams are another team I'm leaving off the board, bro, because I have no idea what to expect from them week in and week out. How would you recap your picks, Andrew?
Yeah, so I have the Steelers selling stock in. I have the Redskins. I'm buying stock in the Washington football team and buying stock in the Green Bay Packers. And I think that the Redskins and the Packers might be in a matchup, maybe in the second round, and
that'll be a fun matchup to watch.
Yeah, it will be, and I honestly would take Washington because if they have Alex Smith back.